Hi, everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today, I'm talking about the movie House Party. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you are concerned about spoilers and you haven't seen the movie yet, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So, House Party is a reboot of the movie from the early 90s starring Kid and Play. Essentially, the premise is a couple kids decide to have a party to make some money or to impress some girls, and, well, things don't go very well. Let me adjust this microphone here just a little bit. Tricks, you're messing me up. There we go. All right. So, as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I thought the cast was great. I particularly liked Tosin Cole as the main character. I forgot his name already. But he was great. I didn't realize he was British until the end of the movie. They were showing the outtakes, and he's trying to shoot the basketball and missing, which is just a nightmare scenario for me. And he's like says something where he gets mad, and I'm like, oh wait, that guy's British. Didn't know the entire time. Yeah, but he was great. Thought his character was great. I liked him a lot. I liked Karen Obilom as Venus. Tamara Kissin is Grace. Andrew Santino is the white guy Dave. Or I'm sorry, is the white guy. I know him from the show Dave. But that was, it's always funny to see kind of the white guy there. And I thought he played it well without being too over the top, without being too offensive or anything like that. I like the sort of bullies, especially Alan Maldonado, Rotimi, and especially Melvin Gregg. I thought he was just so funny in this. I know him from American Vandal. It took me a second to realize what he's from. And I feel like most of his lines were just improvised because they show in the outtakes many times his castmates, people he's working with cracking up and breaking character because he comes up with some pretty creative, interesting stuff. And I thought it was funny. I liked it. And I really liked Kid Cudi in this. I was surprised when he showed up. He's playing himself, but a very weird version of himself. And for whatever reason, that his weird kind of absurd style of humor really worked for me. I don't know. I don't listen to his music, and I never have. But I feel like I'm kind of becoming a Kid Cudi fan because of this movie. And he was in X2, I think. The introduction I thought was pretty good. Again, I'm not expecting a great Oscar-winning type movie here, but we get introduced to the two main characters. We kind of see how their lives are different and how they're similar. It worked for me. I thought a lot of the music in this was pretty good. I'm not a big rap fan, especially current modern kind of stuff. So I went into it expecting that I probably wouldn't like the music very much. But I liked most of the music in this. There's maybe one or two songs that I didn't love so much, but most of it was pretty good. And it wasn't the type of music I expected necessarily. They mixed it up a bit. It was different genres and different types and a lot of older stuff, which I do like. So cool. I think there were some decent setups and resolutions in this movie. Again, nothing mind blowing or anything too surprising, but some pretty basic kind of stuff like, hey, you haven't been a very good friend to me in the past, and like, oh, now I'm gonna be a good friend to you. Again, not, the most interesting thing, not reinventing the wheel here, but it's nice to see just basic kind of script writing stuff taken into account. And yeah, you know where it's going to go, but I don't know. I thought the resolution was somewhat enjoyable. I did like the LeBron James stuff. I thought the fact that he was sort of willing to make fun of himself, he's a producer on the movie, was cool. They had jokes about him having hair plugs and getting hair transplants and stuff like that, which a lot of guys are pretty sensitive about, but the fact that he was willing to, joke about it makes me like him more. I'm not a basketball fan. I don't care about basketball at all. I don't even know what team he plays for, Cleveland or Miami or the Lakers, right? I know that from the movie, but yeah, cool, good there. The Illuminati stuff I thought was pretty good, way over the top and ridiculous, and maybe intentionally done so that we don't realize there really is an Illuminati, but yeah, it kind of worked. It was definitely, there was a point where I was worried they were going too far with it. Much like I just watched Krampus over Christmas. And there's a point in the movie where like they go too far and you're like, oh man, is this all going to be like a dream or something stupid like that? And luckily they didn't do that. No, everything really did happen. So that was cool. And I like the outtakes at the end of the movie. It's something that like Jackie Chan used to do, or Cannonball Run is famous for doing it. And you don't see it too much anymore. I feel like I did see it recently in a movie. I don't remember what, but comedies, of course, you wouldn't do it in a dramatic movie or anything. But I think Toy Story, one of the first, either the first or the second Toy Story, did like fake outtakes, which was weird because it's an animated movie, but still funny. I like that kind of stuff. I was surprised too. A lot of people just got up and laughed as soon as the movie ended, which nowadays I feel like everyone sits around and waits because they think there might be a post-credit scene, regardless of if it's a Marvel movie or not. And with this one, I felt like people were just getting up and leaving as soon as it said the end. And I'm like, there's stuff playing. There's outtakes. You don't want to. They did not. And honestly, one other thing that I should mention here is a lot of the humor in this movie kind of really worked for me, surprisingly. I don't know. I saw the trailer. I'm like, that looks kind of funny. All right, cool. I went to see the movie and it wasn't a packed theater or anything like that. It was, I don't know, maybe half full. And it was one of those weird situations where usually if I see a comedy and there's something I go, oh, okay, that's kind of funny, but it doesn't make me laugh out loud. But then you hear somebody else laugh, and then you kind of appreciate it more. This was the opposite. This is the one where like I was laughing and nobody else was. People were definitely laughing at some part, but there was a couple like jokes or scenes that I thought were pretty funny, and like just the audience just dead reaction. I almost felt self-conscious for laughing about it. I'm like, should I not be laughing at this? Like, hey, I'm a white guy here. Is this inappropriate? But I don't think it was. I think just comedy is very subjective, and I think it seems like people don't like the comedy in this and don't think it's very funny. I am in the other camp. I actually thought I don't think it was great. I didn't think it was hilarious. I didn't cry laughing, but I thought it was surprisingly pretty good. As far as what I disliked about it, so I don't want to really even say it, but one of the other main guys here, I don't know if you can see him behind me there, Jacob Latimore. He's from the movie Slight, which I remember liking, and I think it was a good movie, but his performance was a little flat to me at times, and I think it was just at the beginning, and I think it was also just in contrast to Tosin Cole, whose character is so over the top, and then so he had to play it kind of more reserved and a little more laid back. But at first, I was like, I don't know about this guy. He did, but that being said, there's times when he like sort of has to emote. He gets angry, or he kind of gets upset, and like I actually think he's good there, and he's mostly good throughout the movie, honestly. But there was a couple times early on where I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of getting like, I don't know, like Channing Tatum kind of vibes from this guy. But no, actually, I think he was pretty good. But I did want to point it out because initially I was like, some of the editing and timing, I think, was not very good in this movie. Actually, I meant to check the length on it, and I forgot to, but I do feel like the movie was maybe a little long. I don't remember how long it is. So, but if it was a minute over an hour and a half, it was too long. And I do think it seemed like some of the jokes, some of the editing, and some of the timing on the jokes could have been a little better. I think there's certain jokes that if they would have held the shot for another beat or two, or if they would have cut the shot a little bit sooner, the joke would have worked better. Or if they could have figured out a way to I don't know, kind of punch up the joke or to emphasize it a little bit better. Just kind of minor stuff like that. I can talk a little bit more about the director, but I think this is his first feature. The movie does take a little while to get going. Like I said, it kind of introduced the characters, and I mean, you can figure out where it's going from the very beginning. But yeah, it does kind of take a little while till they actually finally have the titular house party. That being said, I didn't really mind most of it though, but it definitely the first half hour is maybe a little slower than it needs to be. I was surprised there wasn't more weed humor in this. There is definitely some, and the one DJ who like thinks he travels through time when he gets high, that's kind of funny to me. But and I honestly I have not seen the original house party in a very long time. I don't remember how much weed humor is in there. Probably not as much as I expect because, it was like 1990. They didn't do as much back then. But nowadays, weed's legal. It's a little more open. It's a little more, I don't know. I'd like a good Cheech and Chong or Harold and Kumar or something like that. So something for, maybe a little bit more of a Pineapple Express type thing. And though there is some, there wasn't as much as I wanted at least. And there's not enough kid and play in this. I'm watching the movie and I'm starting to see these cameos show up and these people show up and I'm like, wait a minute. Kid and Play are going to be in this, right? And they are. They have a brief cameo, but not much. And I don't know. It would have been cool to see more of Kid and Play. Honestly, it would have been cool if they would have even had a significant part in the plot. Maybe they end up showing up to the party, or they're the cops who break up the party, or they're the dads of the people who are trying to throw the party. I think there could have been some interesting things to do there. And maybe I'm wrong. They could have been a terrible kids movie that way, but I would like to see more Kid and Play. There's a lot of plot hole explanations that just get explained away with like a line of dialogue, which is funny because I often use that. It's like thank you for smoking, where he's like, no, we can't smoke cigarettes in space, there's no oxygen. He goes, we'll fix it with a line of dialogue, just say good thing we invented the space smoking machine or whatever he said. And so they do that a lot in this movie though. So like there's a part where the Tosin Cole's character manages to like get through and like hack into the guy's tablet to LeBron James tablet. And he's like, yeah, you forgot I was in Geek Squad, didn't you? And you're like, okay, all right, I guess that explains why he was able to do that. But like, okay. And then there's a part where like he makes his friend a suit, and he's like, how do you know my measurements? He goes, oh, I measured you when you were sleeping one time. And you're just like, okay. And it's kind of funny because you're like, whatever, it doesn't need to be explained necessarily. But it also just seems like you're just, and I think the worst one is probably at some point he's talking to Venus, the girl that he's got a crush on, and he's known her for like his whole life or something. or at least 10, 15 years. And she's like, oh, yeah, you know, I have a cousin or I have an uncle who lives in New Orleans who's a musician. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. They've known each other for 15 years, and she never mentioned that she has an uncle who lives in New Orleans as a musician, because he's a musician. You'd think he would, you know, that would be relevant information to him. No, no. Okay, fine. Then later it turns out that her uncle was, in fact, Juvenile, a famous musician who had at least one big hit back in the 90s. Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s. So again, she just never mentioned this. I guess it's a movie, it's whatever, but I feel like there maybe would have been a better way to do that. Like maybe she could say, hey, you know, I tried to tell you before about my uncle, because I don't care about your uncle right now, you know? And then finally at the end, they reveal it's Juvenile. I was like, why didn't you tell me your uncle was Juvenile? And she's like, because you kept interrupting me. That could have been funnier. I don't know. Whatever. Stuff like that, though, just I felt like maybe they could have put a little bit more effort into that kind of stuff, and it would have worked. And because of that, it kind of made it feel like a TV show to me. Because, you know, sometimes you watch a TV show and just as the show's been on for 5 or 6 years, they start to kind of come up with just crazy shit and ridiculous plot contrivances and stuff. In some ways, it kind of felt like they were just doing that, where it's just like, oh, yeah. So I don't know. I would have appreciated a little more setup to those, I guess. Other than that, the movie is directed by a guy named Calmatic. He's done a bunch of music videos before this, and mostly music videos. And then he's working on a White Men Can't Jump remake. Another movie from the 90s that I liked. So I'm curious to see what happens with that. It was written by a couple of guys named Stephen Glover and Jamal Olori. They both have pretty much the same credits. They worked on Atlanta, the Donald Glover show, and they did one episode of SNL. That being said, like I said before, I feel like their humor is very much in line with me, but it also seems like most people don't like that type of humor. So hey, Stephen and Jamal, though, I mean, you guys, we're on the same page, man. I did think it was interesting that House Party actually exists in this universe, because when they're trying to plan this house party, they go and watch the movie House Party. It's kind of interesting, kind of funny, but it does kind of make you go like, okay, so wait, what's okay? There's a bunch of cameos in here. So we've got LeBron James, of course. Lil Wayne shows up at that party at the end. Juvenile, like I said before. Snoop Dogg is in there for a bit. We do get Kid and Play briefly, and they're playing Kid and Play, and he actually calls it, hey, that's Kid and Play. Bill Bellamy's in there as the dad, which is kind of funny to see, especially because Bill Bellamy has not aged. He still looks like he didn't look old enough to be the dad, really. Lena Waithe is in there. I always think she's funny. She had a funny little bit about doing roots but backward. Thought that was pretty good. And we got Maya in there, who, I mean, I think every young man who was alive in the late 90s had a crush on Maya. So always good to see her, and she looks great. It does seem like maybe they could have come up with someone a little bit more current. Again, nothing against Maya. She's awesome. She's great. She's a very beautiful woman. But, you know, I mean, you didn't have to get Beyonce, but, you know, you could have got, I don't know what an equivalent is. Shakira, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat, whatever the kids are into these days. I don't know. There's no Martin Lawrence in this movie, at least not that I saw. It would have been cool to see him. And then looking this up, I was trying to remember. I knew there was at least 2 House Party movies with Kid and Play. And then I thought they had made a third one with like some other group of kids, like Chris Cross or somebody like that. I looked it up. It looks like they made 3 with Kid and Play. And then they made a 4th one with, I believe the band was called Immature. It was Roger's band from Sister Sister, I think. And then they made another one, which I just didn't even know about until earlier today, with the kid who plays one of the brothers on Everybody Hates Chris. There may be more. I didn't go any further into the House Party universe for that. But yeah, so this is, I think, the 6th one then, at least, in the House Party series. Initially, this movie was supposed to be released on HBO Max, and then they went to theaters, or maybe it was supposed to be theaters and then HBO Max, and then back to theaters. So they went back and forth with it for a while. I think they ended up deciding on like a 17-day 2,000 theater window or something like that. So if you didn't see it in the theaters yet, it'll be on HBO Max probably within the next couple weeks. And this is a movie where the Rotten Tomatoes score fairly decent difference between the critic and the audience score. The critic score for this one is 30%, so not great, and the audience score is 60%. So, I mean, better, but still not really great. And this is the kind of thing that kind of surprises me because, like I said, I could tell theater I was in didn't seem to be really loving it. The reviews that I've seen haven't been great. And actually, I was going to go see it on Friday, and I kind of decided not to because I didn't read any reviews, but I just saw the numbers and was like, maybe I can skip this one. But then I watched the trailer again. And I'm like, you know, this looks pretty funny. It looks up my alley. And so I went and saw it on Saturday, and I'm glad I did because I kind of like this movie. I thought it was pretty good. I haven't watched the original House Party movie. I should probably rewatch it because a lot of the critics did seem to say it didn't live up to the original. I think maybe some of them criticized for trying to be too much like the original or trying to kind of retread some of the original stuff. Again, I didn't really read too much into the reviews because I don't want them to influence me so much. But I think at the end of the day, it really just boils down to comedy is very subjective. And it's up to you to decide whether something is funny or not. You can't say. I remember my aunt saying she saw Dumb and Dumber in the theater. I was a kid, so I didn't go, and saying she thought it was the stupidest movie and she hated it. And then I remember seeing it later, and that's one of my favorite movies. I think that movie is hilarious. I can quote almost the entire thing. So, or like on Freaks and Geeks when Sam takes his girlfriend to see The Jerk and she doesn't laugh at all. That's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you here. But in this case, I'm probably wrong. I'm probably just an idiot who has bad taste. But that being said, I like this movie. I thought it was pretty good, better than I expected. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. If you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.